I want to welcome everyone to the Cannabis Regulation Commission meeting today. It's Thursday, December 15th, 2022. The time now is 2:08 p.m. I'm President Robert On. I'll be chairing this meeting. And the following commissioners have also joined this meeting virtually via Zoom. We have Vice President Mason, Commissioners Crockett and Naro. DCR's Interim Executive Director Michelle Grakian has also joined this meeting, along with members of the department and the City Attorney's Office. Before we begin, we'll start with some general instructions. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting is being conducted virtually via Zoom and is being live streamed on DCR's website. Those who wish to watch this meeting can do so by visiting cannabis.lacity.org and keep clicking the About menu at the top. Under the About menu, click on the Commission Meetings link and scroll down to the Commission Meetings page to find the live stream. You can listen in by calling council phone at 213-621-2489 or 818-904-9450 and selecting the number for this meeting. Those who wish to offer public comment can call either toll-free numbers 877-853-5257 or 888-475-4499 and enter meeting ID 860-838-7310. These numbers can also be found on the agenda for today. Agendas for today's meeting can also be found on the department's website at cannabis.lacity.org and navigating to the commission page under the About menu. This meeting is being recorded, therefore we ask all speakers to please clearly state your name before you speak. The audio file will be posted online within 48 hours of the meeting. If you're on the Zoom call, when the item you wish to speak on is called, press *9 to get on the speaking queue. The commission executive assistant will call out each speaker by the last 4 digits of their number to identify the caller. The caller will be prompted to unmute themselves by dialing *6. If there are no other items you wish to speak on, you may disconnect from the call and view the meeting via live stream or dial council phone to listen only. We'll be following the agenda order today. Today's presentation to the commission will be available on the department's website within 2 business days from this meeting. We'll consider general public comment and single or multiple agenda items together. Each speaker will have 1 minute for general public comment and 1 minute per item, with a maximum of 2 minutes for multiple items. We ask that speakers state whether they are providing general comment and or which other items they are speaking on prior to beginning to comment so that we can appropriately time them. If the speaker does not specify which items they are speaking on, only 1 minute will be provided. We'll now go ahead and open the general public comment and single or multiple agenda items. Speakers can address the commission on non-agenda related items that are within the jurisdiction of the commission or provide public comment for items in today's agenda by dialing *9 on your telephone. If you're listening on the live stream and have called to provide public comment, please mute the live stream audio before you begin speaking to eliminate feedback. Commissioners and staff, please mute your microphones. And if we're ready, let's, Ms. Treviso, please call the first speaker.
If anyone wishes to provide public comment, please dial *9. President On, there are no callers on the queue.
Okay, let's give it a few more seconds. Okay, let's go ahead and we will now close both the general public comment and single or multiple agenda item periods. And we will move into commission business. Item number 1. Commissioners, you should have the advanced calendar in front of you for our future meeting dates. Please take a look and advise of any planned absences for future. Okay, seeing none, let's move on to the approval of the minutes. We were sent the minutes of November 17th, 2022 for review. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
This is Commissioner Crockett. Motion to approve.
Okay.
Commissioner Naro, I second.
All right, got a first and second for the approval of the minutes. Ms. Treviso, please call the roll.
Commissioner Crockett, how do you vote?
This is Commissioner Crockett. I vote aye.
Commissioner Naro, how do you vote?
Aye.
Vice President Mason, how do you vote?
Aye.
President On, how do you vote?
Aye.
The vote is 4-0 and the motion passes.
Thank you. We'll move on now to commission announcements and updates. Do we have any at this time? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to future agenda requests. Commissioners, do we have any future agenda requests at this time?
This is Commissioner Mason. I would like to add to the next agenda, just a report from the department, if it's not included today, on the budget request for the next fiscal year.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, let's move on to item number 2 of the agenda. Item number 2 is a finding to continue teleconference meetings pursuant to AB 361, which requires that all legislative bodies make findings concerning the state of emergency stemming from the COVID-19 pandemic to continue holding virtual meetings. Do I have a motion to approve and continue teleconference meetings pursuant to AB 361?
Commissioner, now I make a motion that we continue the teleconference meetings.
Okay, I just want to clarify in accordance with AB 361, section E3.
Yes.
Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner Crockett. I second.
All right, Ms. Treviso, please call the roll.
Commissioner Naro, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Crockett, how do you vote?
Aye.
Vice President Mason, how do you vote?
Aye.
President On, how do you vote?
Aye.
The vote is 4-0 and the motion passes.
Thank you. So now moving on to item number 3, this is the report from the interim executive director. Ms. Garakian, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Let's hear it.
How's everybody? Can everybody see me okay?
Yes, we can see you. We're doing great.
And hear me okay? Fabulous. All right. Next slide, please. So I just want, as everybody knows, my name is Michelle Garakian. I am the Interim Executive Director for the Department of Cannabis Regulation, otherwise and affectionately known as DCR. First, I would like to wish everybody a happy holiday season. This will be the last DCR or Cannabis Regulation Commission meeting before the new year. And I'd also like to thank everybody for joining us today. The department has had many accomplishments this year, and I'm going to share those with everybody today. My team will go over these accomplishments in more depth, but I am going to briefly address the highlights. However, first, I want to give an administrative and legislative update to the commission in regards to staffing. Next. Next slide. Thank you. As you can see on the screen in front of you, DCR's vacancy rate is at 37.3%. 37 of 59 authorized positions are filled. In order to reduce our vacancy rate below 20%, which would trigger mandating processing timelines via an ordinance that was approved by council in April of 2022, DCR needs to fill 11 positions to reach a staffing level of 48. This and next week, DCR will be interviewing multiple candidates for senior management analyst, management assistant, and several administrative support positions. What I'd like to also share is that since coming on in April 2022, we have hired 25 people It has been a extraordinary feat. We spent a lot of time trying to achieve our personnel goals, because we know if there are more people working for the department, we are going to ensure that more of our constituents get through the process. Next slide, please. Some exciting news to announce. We will be reopening our public counter. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, DCR transitioned to a virtual public counter beginning in April 2022. Beginning in the week of January 30th, DCR will reopen the public counter for 2 days a week. We will be including that in our news bulletin that we send out next week, and we'll be posting it on our website on the carousel. Thank you. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to give a general update on some specific legislative accomplishments. Most recently, Senator Bradford, California State Senator Bradford, introduced Senate Bill 51. The goal of this bill is to indefinitely extend the state's ability to issue cannabis provisional licenses for local equity applicants. The current deadline of this bill would be June 30th, 2023. DCR very much supports this bill, as in so much as we helped develop a draft resolution on December 7th, which was introduced during a council meeting on December 9th by Councilmember Harris Dawson and was seconded by Councilmember Price. Next steps is that this resolution needs to go back to the full council to be voted and approved on, and then that resolution will be sent up to Senator Bradford and to others. Next slide. As everybody on this call may or may not know, a draft ordinance was adopted by the City Council on Tuesday, December 13th, in regards to relocations and social equity individual applicants to combine their ownership interests. This is a huge deal. DCR has been recommending these two amendments along with 17 other amendments for about a year or so now to our City Council. Alas, only these two amendments were approved last week. Now, since it was approved by the full council, the new mayor must sign the ordinance into law. And once the city clerk publishes the final ordinance, it must stand for 30 days before it's law. Following that, DCR will begin processing relocations. And just to be clear, these will be relocations for social equity individual applicants through the refiling process. I want to be very clear with that. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to get into the accomplishments. Commission, we wanted to provide an update on what DCR has accomplished this year. We have, in my opinion, we have done a lot. And we wanted to spend some time talking about what we perceive to be our accomplishments. Obviously, there's more to be done, but I want to celebrate what we've done this year. And I also want to celebrate the staff and the executive staff specifically in helping to accomplish these goals. Each of the executive staff that's joining us today, Dr. Brown, Rocky Wiles, and Jason Colleen, will go through the specific accomplishments under their divisions more thoroughly, but I'm just going to give a brief overview. So our biggest accomplishment, I would say to date, has been the execution of the Phase 3 Retail Round 2 lottery. 100 social equity individual applicants were selected in the Phase 3 Retail Round 2 lottery. DCR spent a very long time bringing on a consultant who was and did select the 100 participants. That consultant is FTI Consulting. They are a global company. We also had the foresight, and this is a lesson learned from last time, to bring an auditor in throughout the process from soup to nuts to ensure that the entire lottery was being done and correctly, ethically, and transparently. The auditor was able to replicate the results and replicate the results done by FTI in the lottery and found no discrepancies at all. This is a huge accomplishment given the last time that we did a licensing round in 2019. And this took about 9 months to accomplish. So we are very, very, very happy that this went through without a hitch. DCR also alerted the 100 that were selected. And we are going to be sending an email to those selected 100 tomorrow with next steps. Next slide, please. So the social equity program led by Dr. Brown has done incredible things since its inception, and Dr. Brown will get further into that. I want to take a moment to just celebrate her team. There has been so much movement. This year we've had eight beachside chat Q&A sessions, 57 webinars, 300 hours of one-on-one business, professional, and workforce development coaching, 110 hours of self-paced course content on the learning management system. We have distributed $5 million in direct financial assistance, and we've done a virtual and in-person job fair. Next. We've obviously also done the 2022 SEIA verification, which yielded more than 1,100 interested applicants. We were able to verify 508 individual social equity applicants. The social equity program and the team put on a wonderful mixer. It was about 2 weeks ago, very lovely. They also just executed a social equity program survey. And Dr. Brown will get further into this in her presentation. Want to take this time to thank her and her team very much. Next slide. So the Compliance and Enforcement Division is a newly created division in the Department of Cannabis Regulation. It is currently working on and reaching out to retail businesses with TA and temporary approval, reminding them of their requirement to participate in the LA County Public Health Inspection and Emblem Program. So that's been a big accomplishment, I would say almost 3 years in the making. And Rocky will go into that further in her presentation. Also, the division has been working on an overhaul of the complaint portal so the complaint entry can be more easily tracked for resolution and disposition to another city agency. CED also completed its Cannabis in Your Community Partnering on Progressive Enforcement series of town halls. Our vendor is in the process of assembling a report on the feedback that DCR received, and all of these accomplishments are reflected on the slide in front of you. Rocky will get further into this, but this division specifically has come very far. We've also asked for additional position authorities so that we can staff up this division. It's going to be very important. Next slide, please. And just if you can go back to the previous slide. Thank you so much. Before I end this, I just want to let you know that Rocky will also be covering more specific accomplishments for her division as we get to her part of the presentation. Next slide. So licensing, a lot of big accomplishments here. Licensing, as folks know, oversees DCR and our licensing division oversee our current licensing applications. We also prepare those who have been recently selected in the Phase 3 Retail Round 2 lottery for next steps in the process. In addition, the licensing team has been processing renewals, and Jason Killeen, the Assistant Executive Director, continues to host these Q&A virtual webinars each month, which are very, very popular. That we are going to continue that into the new year. In 2022, the licensing team has issued licenses to approximately a total of 829 business locations, 81 licensed Phase 3 Retail Round 1 businesses, and 182 licensed social equity businesses. And these are non-Phase 2. Jason is going to go further into this in his aspect of the report. Next slide, please. Communications. DCR has really stepped it up in our communications. Our intent this year was to be more transparent with everything happening here, from how many staff we have, to what our particular challenges are, to everything. And the reason is because folks need to know what's happening in the department in order to make business decisions. And to that end, we've really jumped in as much as possible to let folks know what's going on over here. And we've also provided a lot more opportunities for folks to engage with this department through the development of our Q&A virtual luncheons with Jason, the variety of blasts and opportunities there are to engage with the department. So I'm going to go through some of our accomplishments. We've had 135 email blasts in 2022. It's a lot. It's definitely probably more than the last 2 or 3 years combined. We've even had some folks ask to take us off of our listserv, take them off of our listserv, because there have been so many, but I think it's important to continue this transparent approach. We fielded more than 50 media requests for interviews. We've released the Spark report and the video. We've hosted more than 20 webinars for SEIA verification, lottery technical assistance, lottery administration, our monthly Q&As with monthly Q&A virtual lunches with Jason Killeen, and that doesn't even include everything that Dr. Brown and the social equity team and all the webinars they have done. Next slide, please. We also launched social media, finally. This has been something in the works, and we are very excited to say that DCR is finally on Facebook and we're finally on Instagram. So please go follow us. It is another opportunity for us to engage with our constituents. Next slide, please. And here's just a little bit of our media coverage. As you guys can see. Next slide, please. Some more media coverage, and I just want to take a moment to thank our legal team, some of whom are either listening or on this call. One of the accomplishments that was not discussed during the slide that discussed the lottery was the work that our legal team went into helping ensure that the lottery proceeded via a legal challenge that we had faced in weeks moving up into the lottery. Next slide, please. We had additional media coverage. Next slide, please. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions. Hello?
Hi, thank you so much, Michelle. Really appreciate, as always, the thorough update. I would be curious to hear directly from the auditor of this latest round. I think that it is a really important step to continuing to build trust in the community and insight into the process by having an external partner. And I think that to kind of further the understanding of the process for the community, possibly having that auditor's voice, giving them the chance to talk a little bit about their process for auditing, can just only further strengthen the trust in the community and in understanding of the process. So I would wonder if that's a possibility to add to a future agenda, possibly at the top of the new year.
Yeah, I would hope so. His findings should be done. I think his ultimate findings should be done by middle January. So maybe we do it in the next January commission meeting.
That absolutely, that would work for me. If we could make that
Okay.
request. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful idea, Commissioner.
Commissioner Naro?
Yes, thank you, Director Garakian. This is a great presentation. I do have a question. I mean, you presented, I think, a lot of good information and accomplishments in this presentation. Will you be converting this presentation to some kind of a report to give to City Hall officials and council members and maybe even the new mayor's office? Because there's a lot of good accomplishments in this presentation, and I wouldn't just want it to be kept in space, you know.
Yeah, well, great minds think alike, Commissioner Naro. That's exactly what we are going to be doing. We're going to be converting this into a bit of an annual report that is going to look very much like our news bulletin, and that's going to go out next week. It will be sent to our listserv as well as all the folks in City Hall, commissioners, et cetera, et cetera. We really want to celebrate this year. It's been a good year.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Great. Yes, Ms. Grockin, I think I echo the sentiments of my commissioners. You know, it's been a long year. Feels like it's been longer than a year, by the way, but lots happened. Certainly a lot of successes. I'm really pleased about the last round with the lottery. I think there was a lot of, you know, questions and concerns how that will go, and especially with the lead up, but I think really happy to hear the results, especially with the third-party audit. That's really kind of, you know, giving folks a lot more confidence in the system as we move forward. So a lot of successes, and certainly important to communicate this to the other city family, but also to, you know, license holders, applicants as well, and just keeping them in the loop. And really glad that we finally have our social media.
Yeah.
That's a great way to stay in touch with the various stakeholders. And so really glad that that's set up, and to see what that can do as far as communication and really streamlining and making communication much easier. But again, kudos to you and your team. A lot of things happened this year, and this is a great summary for us to reflect and start to think about the work that we need to do next year.
Indeed, sir. Thank you.
Vice President Mason.
Okay, pray for me. Interim Director Garakian, when you came on, you advised us of some specific goals that you wanted to accomplish, and it looks like you have met and exceeded your goals that you set for yourself. So I want to congratulate you on that. I want to thank the team and everyone who has supported you in meeting and exceeding your goals for this year. And thank you for your transparency, and to the department for all of the programs that have been implemented in order to support the social equity community and its growth in this industry. And my voice is telling me to be quiet now, so that's it for me for now.
Thank you very much, Vice President Mason. And if I can, Commissioner, can I say one more thing?
Yes.
Commissioner on President.
Sure.
I also want to thank the support of I just want to thank all of our commissioners too. You know, we don't know where we'd be without your guys' support and guidance. It has been an absolute honor and pleasure to work with each of you guys. You all bring something very special to the table, and just you make us better. So thank you very much. It's been our honor and our pleasure.
Thank you for that. Any other final comments? All right. Thank you again, Ms. Garakian. Always very informative. Great to hear from you.
All right.
Okay, let's move on to item number 4. Item number 4 is a report on the social equity program. Dr. Brown.
Hello, can everyone see me and hear me?
Yes, we can see you. Great.
Okay.
Great to see you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, President. Well, good afternoon, commissioners. As this is our last meeting for 2022, we're so excited to share all of our accomplishments, and deliverables. So my report today will include a summary of our business licensing and compliance programs accomplishments. I'll give you some updates on our equity grant for local jurisdiction, our seed rental assistance grant funds and allocations to date, the social equity programs media launch, the pro bono and low bono legal services program, and our workforce development initiative and events. Next slide, please. Now, you know, I always begin my presentation with the mission statement of the department, and that's what guides our policies and work each and every day. I never want folks to lose sight of what our mission is. And it is to promote equitable ownership and employment opportunities in the cannabis industry in order to decrease disparities in life outcomes for marginalized communities and to address the disproportionate impacts of the war on drugs in those communities. Next slide. I'll now provide some updates and highlights on the BLC program for the 2022 calendar year. Slide. Okay, so our BLC offers benefits and resources, which include application processing, business licensing, compliance, and technical assistance programming, our pro bono and low bono legal services program, workforce development. Now, hold on to that. This year, we launched 2 new programs, our low bono legal services program and the seed rental assistance grant program. Now, both programs have become vehicles to provide financial support to hundreds of verified social equity applicants and licensees. Our BLC program is designed to provide the resources and training to applicants and licensees to help them navigate the licensure process. Also to allow our entrepreneurs to stand up their businesses, provide training for our workforce development initiatives, and offer financial and legal assistance to ensure business stability and compliance. Next slide. Okay, so here's a snapshot of the resources and programs that we have delivered in 2021 and 2022. If you look at the 2021 side, we launched the Learning Management System, or LMS, as it's affectionately called, which contains 50 hours of self-paced educational content, 16 live webinars. The site is available exclusively to verified social equity applicants. They have access to a comprehensive digital platform of information and topics such as marketing and branding, insurance requirements, commercial leasing and contract negotiations, track and trace, licensing procedures, cannabis technology application, workforce development training, and good faith hiring requirements, and much more. In addition to our LMS programming, there were 35 applicants who were referred to our pro bono legal services program. We dispersed $6 million in direct financial assistance and hosted a Grow virtual job fair. Now in 2022, we hosted 8 beachside chats with international technology experts, 57 live webinars covering all topics relevant to running a successful licensed commercial cannabis business. We're offering 300 hours of one-on-one business, professional, and workforce development coaching. As of December 2022, we added 65 hours of online courses on the LMS, totaling 110 hours of educational content and recordings to date. This year, with the SEED grant program, we are distributing $5 million in direct financial assistance, in addition to an on-person job fair, which took place at Trade Tech College. Next slide. The department opened the individual eligibility verification window from May 26th to July 25th. We provided comprehensive training for the verification process. During this verification period, DCR conducted 5 technical assistance webinars. On May 10th, May 24th, and May 14th, Mr. Killeen hosted 3 virtual lunchtime Q&A sessions, answering stakeholder questions regarding the verification process. DCR also produced a video tutorial which walked applicants through the verification request form step by step. We also published an eligibility checklist for requesters to use as they compile their documents. A total of 1,276 submissions were reviewed. All newly verified social equity individual applicants were notified of their eligibility status and have immediate access to all program benefits and resources, including personalized coaching services, legal consultation and review, access to all modules and comprehensive quizzes on the LMS, and grant opportunities. Next slide. In addition to the verification process, this year, the SEP team developed and launched a standalone website for the Business Licensing Compliance and Technical Assistance Program. We call it the BLC website. On this website, you are able to access the LMS, webinar registration, it has DCR updates and more. Last month, we gave an in-depth overview and demonstration of the website, if you will recall. In addition to that, the new BLC website houses additional resources such as a revamped jobs board, which allows job seekers to find career opportunities at licensed cannabis businesses. And it also allows our licensed operators to find social equity, local, and transitional workers. This feature also supports licensed operators to comply with their good faith hiring requirements. This website also acts as a portal to accessing one-on-one coaching registration. DCR's Canada Dispatch newsletter and all Canada Dispatch archives, our video archives, and upcoming event information are housed on this website. The website launched November 1st, and an inaugural email blast was sent out to all verified social equity applicants, stakeholders, and other community partners. This slide, as previously mentioned, the BLC website provides a new home for all the great BLC content and programming that is available. Since the website launched in November, the general public has the ability to remain informed on SEP news and updates by subscribing via SMS and the email alert portal. Next slide. Our monthly BLC Canada Dispatch newsletter informs verified social equity applicants and licensees on additional resources and webinars offered to them with local, state, and national cannabis news and resources. The last few months of 2022 have especially been filled with new and exciting launches and events for the social equity program, including our virtual monthly business-to-business mixers and the Los Angeles Cannabis Unite. That was an in-person networking mixer that focused on the DCR's good faith hiring requirements. In November, the Canada Dispatch newsletter published information on webinars that discussed occupational safety and health by OSHA, and on business tax information by the state of California Department of Tax and Fee Administration. In December, the Canada Dispatch published our 2 webinars of the year on identifying funds and raising capital and the Los Angeles City Council rules and regulations updates. The December Dispatch highlighted our virtual business-to-business mixer. It provided the DCR Employer Toolkit, which is equipped with a user guide and updated requirements for job seekers. Our virtual coaching, which offers free 15-minute assessments to determine your career or business path. And DCR's in-person networking mixer, which was called LA Cannabis Unite. Next slide. Our Workforce Wednesday series. This has expanded its workforce development network with our Workforce Wednesdays fall and winter series. Now, employers from businesses and institutions across the cannabis industry provided insight to share experiences and best practices, while the social equity team remained on standby in our virtual Q&A booth to answer any questions. It created a platform to not only highlight our business licensing and compliance resources, but also it put the spotlight on other operators and inform attendees on workforce development tips, legal resources, financial literacy, coaching, and hiring. The event also provided an opportunity for cannabis companies to connect with job seekers to fill hiring needs from entry level to leadership roles, all while fulfilling their good faith hiring requirements. In 2022, the Workforce Wednesday series gathered over 100 attendees, participated in discussions about finance and insurance, supply chain, real estate business, and operations, hiring practices. We recently hosted the last business-to-business virtual mixer yesterday, December 14th, which focused on distribution and peer-to-peer networking. This was the last virtual mixer in the Workforce Wednesday webinar series that DCR hosted in an effort to stimulate discussion and build networks with coaches, operators, business owners, job seekers, and the cannabis industry. Next slide, please. Moving forward, we have free business coaching. We're thrilled to offer over 300 hours of free business, professional, and workforce development coaching with subject matter experts from a wide range of expertise. Now, coaching is available in the following business formation categories. You can get coaching on leasing, commercial leasing and negotiations, contracts, and business structure. Next slide. Additionally, we offer a full suite of workforce development training for job seekers. The free coaching for job seekers includes interview training, resume review, resume writing assistance, and mock interviews with coaches. Coaches will go over with job seekers the skills required for specific careers within the cannabis space. They'll go over job application processes and where to find cannabis jobs. Next slide. We launched our newly renovated jobs board on November 1st of 2022. The jobs board its function is to serve as a centralized hub for Los Angeles cannabis operators and job seekers to find each other. It will allow job seekers to interact with many organizations at once, as well as have the peace of mind to know that they're applying for a position within a licensed operation. That's key. For employers, the job board is intended to support their overall staffing needs, as well as aid in their ability to meet local, transitional, and social equity good faith hiring requirements. Slide. In March of 2022, the DCR hosted the two-day Grow 2022 job fair. The first day was virtual and featured panels by industry experts across the licensing type. Additionally, as preparation for the in-person portal of the event, DCR offered resume review and interview tips and strategies to help applicants prepare. The following day, the in-person job fair was held at LA Trade Tech College, where we had over 20 licensed businesses exhibiting and interviewing for open positions. There were panel discussions, as well as food and music and more. By the end of the event, 15 attendees had secured jobs. Slide. I'm so pleased to announce that DCR has officially launched our social media accounts on two platforms, Facebook and Instagram on November 26th. Through these platforms, SCP news and updates are posted in real time to better connect with the community. Additionally, we want to utilize this platform to encourage participants to take advantage of our webinars, participate in our events, and to keep the public informed on important announcements, like the latest council updates or licensing updates, relevant cannabis news, etc. We encourage everyone to join DCR's social media page at LADCR for Instagram and Facebook at LADCR. Next. As a companion deliverable to the March 2022 Grow Job Fair, the DCR planned and coordinated a very special networking mixer called Los Angeles Cannabis Unite, which was held on December 3rd at the beautiful historic Mayfair Hotel in downtown LA. We had over 500 attendees gather for a night to commemorate and celebrate the Los Angeles social equity operators and the cannabis workforce. We had over 20 booths where they were on display, showcasing their businesses, organization, merchandise, no product or art to the community. This mixer highlighted the DCR's good faith hiring program and workforce development efforts, as well as to welcome the public to become familiar with the DCR's job board, the social equity resources that are available, and also an opportunity to meet the social equity program team. The community successfully came together in support of one another and the department. It was a wonderful evening. Relationships were cultivated. The DCR team had an opportunity to connect face-to-face with more than 500 stakeholders and applicants and licensees, as well as community-based organizations and thought leaders. We received a tremendous feedback The department plans to host more in-person events in 2023 that focus on bringing resources and information to the community. Next slide. 2022 DCR accomplished our goal of improving marketing tactics, raising awareness, and providing additional outreach to our stakeholders, applicants, and licensees. This year alone, Social Equity Program has published 12 Canada Dispatch newsletters. We posted 7 virtual networking events. We scheduled 290 meetings of free coaching and consultation on commercial leases and negotiations, contracts and business structure and job training, and we've added 35 jobs to the jobs board. And we posted 2 in-person events, Road Job Fair at Trade Tech and the LA Cannabis Unite at the downtown Mayfair Hotel. Next slide. Moving on with more resources, we continue to provide our pro bono legal services for retail and delivery applicants deemed eligible for further processing. In 2021, 35 applicants were referred through the LA County Bar Association Smart Law Referral Service. To date, we have referred 53 applicants through this program, and we encourage all who qualify to take advantage of this resource. Now, to do so, communications were sent out and continue to be sent out to all eligible applicants by email and text message. And if you did not receive this communication but believe you are eligible, please contact us at dcr.sec@lacity.org so we can assist you. Slide. In our continuing efforts to provide support, resources, and services that cultivate businesses' success, in addition to offering the pro bono resources, DCR launched our new low bono legal services program on October 6th, 2022. With this, folks will be able to receive up to 30 hours of legal consultation and services at a discounted rate of $35 per hour. And outside of this program, attorney's fees can run from $350 an hour to $750 an hour. For many, the time and affordability will be monumental in clarifying and mending the many legal issues applicants and licensees present to us daily. We truly hope that the new verified social equity applicants take advantage of this program as they embark on becoming operational. Next slide. Now, this is a screenshot of the page where you can sign up for these services. Please complete the online survey and upload the authorization agreement to complete the process. It's super easy. It's just those 2 documents. Next slide. Now, in 2021, the city of LA dispersed $6 million to 206 social equity applicants. For Seed 1, a total of $5 million was dispersed for 148 grant recipients, and for Seed 2, a total of $1 million was dispersed, 58 grant recipients, totaling the 206. Those who received this grant were able to use the financial assistance for various costs and expenses to start, improve, and elevate their business. I wanted just to give you a snapshot of what was happening with the Seed Grant Program last year. Now, next slide, please. Finally, I want to remind the Commission that with the funding for the 2022 Cannabis Equity Grant for local jurisdictions, we have really worked diligently to develop and launch our rental assistance grant program for verified social equity applicants and licensees. In partnership with Elevate Impact LA, this year we're distributing $5 million in 2 separate tiers, Seed 1 and Seed 2. The rental assistance grant funds may be used to pay for a security deposit pursuant to a fully executed commercial lease for the purposes of operating a licensed commercial storefront retail location, to finance up to 1 month in back rent on a fully executed lease, to secure a binding letter of intent by paying the required security deposit, to assist with build out or construction costs for the purposes of renovating a location, operate a licensed commercial cannabis storefront. Next slide, please. Now, the Rental Assistance Grant Program, Seed 1.0, will utilize $4 million in funding provide financial assistance for our Phase 3 Retail Round 1 folks. As part of the application process, this year we added an educational requirement for applicants that will be able to access our learning management system, and they need to complete 3 academic courses on business planning, leasing and contract negotiation, and licensing. They will also have the option to complete an elective, if you will, outside of the subject topics, if they choose to do so. Now, applicants are required to complete a comprehensive quiz on each subject and submit their completion certificates prior to receiving financial disbursements of $50K. Now, the first disbursement course requirement is commercial leases and contract negotiations, part 1 and 2. In order to receive the second disbursement, the course requirement is business planning and operational development. And for the third disbursement requirement, you can opt for your elective course, as long as it's chosen from the DCR LMS. Next slide, please. The 2.0 rental assistance grant utilizes $1 million in funding from the equity grant for local jurisdictions, provide financial support to our social equity individual applicants and licensees who are seeking temporary approval or a license type that is not retail commercial cannabis, and they have passed a pre-app review stage with a compliant proposed business premises and have an executed lease or a binding letter of intent for that proposed business. C2 applicants are required to fulfill just 1 educational course requirement on commercial leases and contract negotiations, parts 1 and 2, and they received the grant in 1 disbursement of $10,000. Next slide, please. Now, our goal with this installment of the Cannabis Equity Grant is to assist qualified entrepreneurs with securing and maintaining social equity-owned compliant property and businesses. Awarding equity entrepreneurs with up to $50,000 has the ability to change the trajectory of businesses that are in dire need of rental assistance right now. We officially launched the Seed Rental Assistance Grant Program on September 30th of 2022, and we have had an overwhelming response with applications. Hosted a series of lunch and learn training webinars on October 7th, October 20th, and December 1st. These training sessions walk applicants through the process. Now, we will continue to provide additional training sessions and reminders on an as-needed basis. Slide. Date, there are a total of 308 Seed Rental Assistance Grant applicants that are currently pending approval. Out of those 308, 187 are Seed 1.0 and 121 are Seed 2.0. A total of $600,000 has been dispersed thus far for our Seed 1.0 recipients, and $110,000 has been dispersed for Seed 2.0 recipients. Elevate Impact is working diligently to ensure that additional funds will be dispersed through the end of the year. As a reminder, the application period will close on March 30th, 2023. Applicants will be able to apply for this grant until funds are exhausted. The SEP team has worked all year on pushing programming forward to be able to provide financial resources such as the Seed Rental Assistance Grant Program for applicants and licensees. And we really hope to continue this effort into the new year. As access to capital continues to be a major barrier for equity entrepreneurs, programs like the Rental Assistance Grant Program are vital. Now, in total, at the end of 2022, at the end of that grant term, which concludes in October of 2023, the DCR would have dispersed $11 million in direct financial support to social equity individual applicants and licensees from the 2021 and the 2022 Cannabis Grant for local jurisdictions. And that concludes my presentation. I will turn it back over to President An. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brown, for that very thorough report. And I want to open it up to my fellow commissioners for any questions or comments.
Hello,
Commissioner
Dr. Brown.
Crockett.
Yes, thank you, President On, and hello, Dr. Brown. Thank you so much for this presentation, and of course, thank you for all the incredible work you and the team have done. It is evident that the effort you all are putting into cultivating a community of social equity applicants and licensees is really starting to take hold. And I'm curious, you talked a lot about the outputs of your team and your work, the amount of engagement that you've had, the number of events that you're putting on. And as the cannabis ecosystem in Los Angeles continues to evolve, I'm wondering if you're starting to think about how social equity specifically is measuring outcomes. Or is there a point where we could at one day start looking at how these businesses are performing over a set period of time, particularly those being run by social equity applicants? How many are continuing to exist year over year and maintain the same social equity ownership? Are there any thought into future metrics that we could begin to incorporate as licensees have a little bit longer tenure to track?
I appreciate that, Commissioner Crockett. At the end of each grant period, we do a comprehensive survey, and we do analytics to assess the efficacy of our programming. So we do, detailed surveys to our applicants and licensees, and we ask, very targeted questions about the efficacy of the program. And so I can share that report from 2021 with you. We haven't done it yet for 2022, as the grant term doesn't end until October 31st of 2023. But it's very important to us to get that kind of feedback, because it informs us as we move forward with the next iteration of grants, to make sure our programming is in line with what the community needs now. As we all know, this industry is so nimble, and what was happening and what was pertinent in 2020 is not necessarily what's happening in 2021 or 2022. We're trying to stay nimble to meet people where they are and to address their most pressing needs. So I'll share the 2021 report with you.
Thank you, Dr. Brown.
Hi,
Hi.
this is Vice President Mason. Thank you for your report, Dr. Brown.
Thank you,
There are
President.
times, thank you. There are times during these proceedings where I think that Jason, Commissioner Crockett and I were separated at birth, because I was thinking of something similar along those lines. I know that there are specific requirements of social equity applicants to receive their pre-approvals, and one of those has to do with how they engage their surrounding community. So I want to extend his request to include some actual testimonials or report backs to us, since sometimes we are insulated from that community, about how they're impacting the community around them. Presence, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm sure we won't hear the bad and the ugly, but I'd like some intel in that regard as well.
I appreciate that. We will include that on our next communication and try to get feedback. We're also creating a community work group, and I think that's going to be a wonderful vehicle for us to get feedback in just the the areas that you're speaking about. So we will make sure to just tap into that to see how these dispensaries are interfacing with their surrounding community.
A community
Thank you.
work group sounds like a brilliant idea. I just have to echo Vice President Mason's point around the value of feedback on the ground, and I think having community members also engaging with new licensees across future rounds or the most recent rounds to provide their perspective, insight. It's almost like a train the trainer model to some degree, but there's just, as this continues, so many awesome ways that we can continue to leverage the social equity network and ecosystem. So excited to see what comes.
And if I just may say, it's been an honor to do this work. And as we conclude 2022, there's so much more to do. We appreciate your guidance and your commitment as a commission to this work. And I look forward to working together in the coming years. So everyone just have a wonderful end of year and holiday, and stay safe, and continue to we all just can do better. And we're committed to doing better and serving our community. And that's first and foremost in terms of what we want to accomplish and what we can accomplish.
Yes, thank you again, Dr. Brown. I think, this kind of recap and summary of the past year in your presentation is so helpful because, it reminds us of the breadth of the programs, how much it has evolved. When I'm out there and I'm speaking to folks about social equity, most often people just talk about social equity in terms of licensure, priority of licensing. Maybe some people talk about funding, but they don't really think of it, holistically and really how expansive the program is. And so I believe you're really setting the foundations for a social equity program that hopefully can be modeled, really nationwide from throughout other jurisdictions, and they can see the successes and learn from the program that we have built.
Yes.
Really happy to see that you've really taken a very expansive view of social equity, because I think we've talked about this before, you and I. Social equity goes, and so that's why I'm so happy to see the job training, the facilitation of connecting, industry to also the community. And then again, as Commissioner Crockett mentioned, just creating that ecosystem and providing the coaching and the training and all the resources that come with it, because it's not just about getting the license. That is just the beginning. That is just the beginning. And so we've got to make sure that we set up an environment and provide the resources so that these social equity licensees can ultimately be successful. And really, that is such a critical point. But just want to again commend you for your vision and your leadership. It's so critical. The social equity program is really at the foundation of the cannabis industry here in Los Angeles, and it's just so great to see you leading the charge in this manner. So thank you again.
Thank you. You're very welcome. And just to your point, President Hahn, when I communicate to the public and I'm doing speaking engagements, I really try to let folks know the ecosystem, as you have talked about at DCR, there's 5 divisions, and folks usually just think that social equity is all of it. But I let them know that there is a licensing division and a social equity division and a communications division and an enforcement and compliance and an administration division, and that social equity is responsible for resources in training and education. And so when folks hear that, they get a different picture of, oh, okay, there's more to, it's social equity is not just licensing. That's a part of it. And licensing has of course, a direct impact, but it's about education and training. And as more and more people understand that, and understand that they can take advantage of these resources, I think it is having a very positive, effect on the community. And so we're just going to continue to do this work.
Yeah, that's so exciting. And as we head into the next year, the new year, and as you mentioned, the goal is to just constantly get better.
Yes.
And I'm really so glad to hear you say that, because that is, really, especially in an industry as nascent as this, we are all kind of learning as we go, and learning from the past, and the more we do, the more changes and improvements we can make. And really just want to challenge you to continue to reimagine what social equity is and can be. But I think we're definitely off to the right track.
Creating equity, especially in this industry, is a tall order, because that speaks to dismantling a lot of injustices that took place long before any of us conceived that cannabis would be legal in this city, let alone in so many states that it is legal in. And it's not just that this department has embraced the purpose, it's that our city has, it's that our council members has, our former mayor did. And so I'm going to go beyond the department and thank our city council and thank our former mayor for really embracing the concept of social equity for allowing this department to implement its definition of equity, for understanding that until those who were treated unjustly are made whole, no one can really move forward. So this department is quickly becoming, well, is a model department, but is quickly improving itself as a model department, and especially in light of recent hostilities against social equity programs. I'll leave that at that. It is, you know, refreshing, and it is even more critical, I think, for us to continue to strive to prove a point, and that is that social equity is needed. Whether people want to believe it or not, it is needed, it is necessary, it is a requirement, and we're not stopping.
That's right.
We're not stopping.
That's right.
That's right. Very well said, Vice President Mason. Any final comments? No? Okay, with that, Dr. Brown, once again, a huge thank you to you and your team. Really enjoyed that presentation, and looking forward to the new year.
I have to thank my team.
Yeah.
It takes a village, and we're a small, but we're a mighty team, and they work tirelessly every single day to put forth these programs and resources. I want to give a shout out to the social equity team, and I couldn't do it without them. Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, let's move on now to item number 5. Item number 5 is a report on the compliance and enforcement program. I believe this is Ms. Rocky Wiles.
Yes, good afternoon, commissioners. Let's switch gears to a different kind of a topic, and that is compliance and enforcement. Again, I am Rocky Wiles, Division Manager for the new Compliance and Enforcement Division, or CED. So as this is the last commission meeting of the year, I want to also showcase what this small but also mighty group has been able to accomplish in 2022. Next slide, please. In order for you to appreciate how far we've come in a short period of time with very little resources, here's where we were last year at this time. So in 2021, we had no positions allocated for the necessary compliance and enforcement function in this department. Therefore, we had done very little or no compliance related work last year. Operational regulation number 5, which is what our licensees must follow and abide by, was somewhat cumbersome and unorganized. We had a very minimal complaint portal triage, having no internal workflows and procedures. This resulted in a lack of transparency, and because we had extremely minimal resources, providing timely responses to complaint inquiries was definitely a challenge. This year, beginning in April of 2022, City Council allocated 5 positions to the CED. In August of 2022, the Civil Service Commission approved the positions, and we were finally able to begin the hiring process. In addition to the 5 positions, we have position authority for 2 special investigators. Currently, we have 1 special investigator and 1 part-time senior administrative clerk that is officially assigned to this division. We're still hiring, going through interviews, and we hope to fill these positions early next year, maybe a couple before the end of the year, we hope. So all those positions, the 5 positions that were approved, remain vacant. However, since we're in the the spirit of giving shout outs, the commission support staff that you know very well, Josie and Josie Treviso and Osmara Valencia, who support the commission, and because they report to me, I've been able to pull them, and they basically do double duty and have been, I'm so grateful that they've been able to help us with our compliance and enforcement efforts. So they also have been able to help us out. So we were finally able to officially launch and introduce the CED to the public on October 21st, 2022. We sent out an email blast. We began the program by requesting that licensees read and submit the licensee attestation form. and by requiring delivery businesses to register the delivery vehicle fleet with DCR. Also, earlier this year, we revised our operational regulations to make them clear and organize them into categories so that it is easier to locate specific regulations. We also eliminated some of the redundant regulations. Probably the most notable accomplishment is that we have been able to triage almost all the complaints that we have that have been submitted to the department via the complaint portal since 2018, when the department was created. Actually, the department was created in 2017. We have triaged about 98% of all the complaints ever submitted to the department. So that is a huge accomplishment. Another item that we have been working on, excuse me, turn off my phone here. Another item that we have been working on is to be able to implement the program is the Acela enforcement module. This module is ready to be launched early next year. We also conducted 3 town hall meetings called Cannabis in Your Community, partnering on progressive enforcement strategies. I know this commission knows about these town halls. And as you know, the purpose of the town halls was to engage with community members about illegal cannabis activity in their neighborhoods, and for us to receive input as we consider new strategies on progressive enforcement. We will use this information to prepare a report back on how to best enforce against illegal businesses that the City Council requested earlier this year. And last but not least, which has actually been a huge undertaking, we have been working with ITA to improve and enhance our complaint portal. We've simplified the complaint intake form. We added a subportal for other agencies to notify us when these agencies have issued their own notices of violation. This will actually facilitate running reports, and we will have one central location where we will be able to maintain all records related to enforcement actions by other agencies. Next slide. So as a new division, and just as Dr. Brown does, we want to start by stating our mission and program goals. Our mission is to implement clear standards and procedures to ensure operational compliance with the rules and regulations for cannabis procedures, specifically regulation number 5, which provides operational requirements for licensees. The goals of our new division is to educate through outreach, to share information that is easily accessible via workflows, forms, deadlines, to be transparent related to an individual's complaint. So this is providing the complaint status when somebody submits a complaint. We want to encourage operators to be good neighbors. We want to establish a progressive enforcement strategy to achieve compliance, provide clarity of operational regulations, and that's regulation number 5, and also clarity about the administrative violations, penalties, and appeals, which is regulation number 7. So today, I'm going to be highlighting 3 areas that the CED team worked on this past year. The first will be the emblem program. Then I want to talk about basically an overview of the compliance attestation requirements, which is step 1 toward establishing our progressive enforcement strategy. And third, I'll talk a little bit about the complaint portal and give you some numbers. Next slide. So let's begin with the emblem program. So last year, this is where we were. We were still reviewing the draft emblem program ordinance. We were also reviewing the county ordinance for adoption into the LAMC. And our legal team was still in negotiations related to the indemnification agreement with county council. This actually took approximately 3 years to get our 2 agencies to come to an agreement. As of today, we have adopted the storefront retailer emblem program. As you know, this is an LAMC 104.23, became effective in July 6, 2022. We also adopted the LA County health regulations by reference for public health inspections of cannabis facilities. We successfully executed the agreement between LA County and the City of LA. We established coordination between the Department of Building and Safety, also known as LADBS, and DCR to verify use and occupancy of retailer facilities, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And we were able to launch the Emblem program earlier this year. Next slide. So by issuing this emblem that you see on the slide, the public will be notified that the store has received all required state and local licenses, permits, or other authorizations to become an authorized cannabis store. The program includes 2 annual inspections to ensure that cannabis facilities follow state regulations and local ordinances. In order to participate in the program, licensees who hold temporary approval need to review the requirements for site evaluation to verify that the facility meets those requirements. They have to submit a completed application to the county, and the county will then review the application, and they will get back to the applicant within 7 business days. They will then contact the applicant, and they will issue an invoice for each activity. Licensees can either mail or pay in person. If the facility doesn't meet the requirements, then the applicant will be required to submit a set of complete plans, and they have to submit the plans in the plan check application with the payment for the cannabis facility plan check fee. This information will be shared with our licensees via an email blast later this month. So these public health inspections, specifically the site evaluation that you've heard about, although initially we rolled them out on a voluntary basis, will become a requirement when DCR begins its annual licensing process. These inspections are very important for retail facilities to obtain an emblem, the emblem placard that you see here, because as I mentioned, this placard notifies the public that the retail facility has received all required state and local licenses and approvals. To receive this placard, they have to pass the site evaluation and obtain a public health permit. The site evaluation is basically a streamlined, less costly, and faster way of obtaining an inspection and health permit that was specifically created for our cannabis facilities that are currently operating. So, I urge business operators to act now, as the streamlined process will not be available after DCR begins the annual licensing process. They should take advantage of going through this process now in order to avoid the requirement of obtaining a the health permit by submitting plans, because that will be a longer process. Please note that all applicants who receive temporary approval by March 31 of 2023 will be eligible to take advantage of this site evaluation process. I do want to mention that a review of cannabis facility locations that currently hold temporary approval, we found that many of the facilities do lack city required permits and certificate of occupancy from the Department of Building and Safety for the use of the building related to the retail activity, and approval from the fire department, specifically their fire development section for non-retail commercial activity. So when we saw this, we wanted to help facilitate the procurement of these placards by our licensees. So we established a process whereby DCR is assisting our licensees with the verification of the use of the building, so that they can move forward procuring these very valuable emblems to differentiate between the legal and illegal businesses. Next slide. Again, I want to emphasize one more time that to issue an emblem placard and health permit for retail cannabis businesses, evidence that all required state and local licenses, permits, and other authorizations must be provided by the applicant to the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. However, to help move the program along, like I just mentioned, my staff is doing research for the licensees. So on behalf of the licensees, and providing it to Building and Safety so that Building and Safety can then make a determination as to the permitted use of the buildings. So we created this form that you see on the screen. It's Form ENF 3002 form. And this streamlines the verification. So DCR basically performs the research at no cost for the permits and certificate of occupancy for the businesses locations which hold temporary approval for retail cannabis activity. We then complete this form, and we submit it to Building and Safety, along with all the with the research that my staff has done, that shows what the latest use and certificate of occupancy of the building is. So we submit the form along with that research to Building and Safety. Building and Safety then reviews the documents that we submit. Go ahead and click, Aaron. And so Building Safety will either check this box, which it says that based on the information that we provided, they have determined that the permits and certificate of occupancy basically meet city requirements for retail activity at the business premises location. Or go ahead and click. They can check this box, which basically says that the applicant will be required to apply for a building permit. If they check this box, then we will notify the applicant, who will then have to submit plans to Building and Safety so that they can either provide, they might either have to do a change of use or tenant improvements so that they can then submit that information to the county in order to obtain their health department permit and placard. Next slide. So because when we first rolled out this program, it's still basically on a voluntary basis. Not a lot of people are calling or trying to make these requests to the county. So the county has only been able to issue 4 placards so far citywide. My staff has done the research for approximately, I want to say, about 80 different locations. We have about 240 retail locations citywide. And Jason will go over those numbers in more detail later on in the presentation. But we have completed approximately about 80 locations, the research for 80 locations. Building and Safety has returned to us about 60 verification forms. So, the information is there. We will be sharing, we will be sending out a blast to our licensees to inform them that they really should take advantage of this opportunity so that they can get, their placard sooner than later. We'll also put all this information on our website so that applicants can easily find it. Next slide. So the second topic I wanted to talk about is the licensee attestation. We sent this email blast back in October 21, and we are requiring, this is in line with the progressive enforcement strategy that we want to establish as a new division. This attestation needs to be submitted by our licensees. They can use this one form for multiple locations under the same legal entity. They have to provide their legal business entity record number. They have to provide the date when the business began operating. This form needs to be signed by a simple majority of the licensee's owners or by the authorized agent, and if applicable, the social equity individual applicant. By signing this form, the licensee declares that the licensee has read has received, read, and understands all applicable operational regulations, which is regulation number 5. The licensee is also required to provide a copy of the rules and regulations for cannabis procedures to any and all primary personnel, managers, and the person in charge. Next slide. So as of December, as of yesterday, we have a total out of 829 businesses that we have provided, that we have issued temporary approval to. We have received 445 attestations. And this is, again, we sent this email blast in October 21. So we've received about 54% of the attestations that we need. 38 of those businesses are not yet operational. Part of what we're going to do in our outreach is, we'll contact, we will send another email blast, and we will contact the licensees to make sure that they've received our email and encourage them to provide this attestation by, we'll probably give them a deadline of the end of January of next year. Next slide. Finally, I want to talk about the complaint portal. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we have been working very hard with ITA to improve and enhance our complaint portal. We've simplified the complaint intake form, which I've shown in previous commission meetings. We added a sub-portal for other agencies to notify us whenever they issue their own notices of violations. So this will facilitate running reports. And we will have one central location where we will maintain all the records pertaining to enforcement actions by other agencies at a specific location. All these features, including allowing the public to check on the status of their complaint and receive status notifications via email whenever we update them. If the complainant provides an email, it will be launched early next year. Statuses will provide more transparency to the public about their complaint. So this slide that you see up here represents about 6 months worth of work, not only by my immediate staff, which, as I told you, is very, very small, but also I want to thank Jason and his team. He allowed me to borrow some of his analysts so that they could help triage our complaints on overtime. And we had about nine folks from his team help us out. I think they worked for the past month. We started with, yes, you see up there, 6,000 complaints. And we have actually, I think we have only about, as you see there, we have 159 open complaints, 381 complaints that we still need to go through to figure out if they are actually violating our rules and regs. But everything else that you see on the screen has been closed for the reasons that you put that we have on the table. All these are statuses that we've just added to our complaint portal so that they describe exactly why we've closed that complaint. So if the inquiry comes back, or if the complainant wants to go back and see why the complaint was closed, they will see the reason, and it's clear and transparent as to why there is no additional follow-up on that complaint. Again, just like Dr. Brown said, I think all of our, except for Jason's team, our teams are small, but they are super dedicated. They work very hard, during regular working hours and beyond. And I think we're all very, very fortunate to have a team like ours. And I'm just, I'm very, very happy with all the accomplishments that we have thus far. And I know next year I will come back and give you more good news. And I want to wish you happy holidays. And I'm here if you have any questions. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wiles. That was very informative. Just a lot you've accomplished in a very short period of time. I know it's from the ground up, you had to create this. So I really appreciate you and your team's efforts.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions or comments? Commissioner Naro?
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Rocky. Excellent presentation. Thank you to your team. I do have a question. I know there's some other agencies now that uh, figuring out their enforcement mechanisms, like the Office of Civil Rights and the Civil and Human Rights and Equity Office, and I know there's also like the Office of Wage Standards that does um, the enforcement of wage and hour laws in the city of LA. How would this, like, when you're creating this process, how will it interact with the other city departments that have an enforcement mechanism, and they may be connected also with this industry, like for example, like the labor standards and other
Oh,
kinds of discrimination that may be covered by other agencies?
yeah, that's a very good question. And in retrospect, I should have probably talked about that too, but it's not on the agenda. So I just want to make sure that I'm not outside
Well,
of
we can
that.
probably talk about
That's-
this in the next year too. So
But just to, I mean, it is coordination with other agencies, and we do, and I'm sure that the city attorney will stop me if I'm speaking out of line here, but we do have meetings regularly with all the agencies that provide and enforcement to cannabis facilities like LAPD, DWP, fire department, building and safety. We've recently started talking to folks over from the DCC, and as we continue to, implement new procedures, questions come up, and I'm always meeting new people, just networking and figuring out how it is that we can coordinate and not only that, but also join forces, right? So for example, with the DCC and their investigators, I want to make sure that if they have a complaint and we have a complaint, that we go out together. So, I mean, this is going to take a little bit of time and a lot of, coordination, but we are thinking about that. Yes, absolutely, 100%.
and then I'm happy to help you. I do focus a lot on the labor enforcement in LA City.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy to work with you on that piece and also
Yes.
some of the anti-discrimination provisions.
I appreciate that. That has been, we have seen some complaints specifically about that,
Yeah.
just like sales to minors. So I know one of our city attorneys, Taylor Regnier, and I met with that city attorney to pick her brain. And initially that we were going to have to do a lot of that, right? Just figuring out what other people are doing and how we can use their resources and, to better what we're doing and to come up with really good procedures and, make this work. Set a good example. Thank you.
As well as I did have a question. You said that the emblem program was voluntary. Are there any plans to make it mandatory?
Yes, I mentioned when the annual licensing process begins, by then having this health permit will be a requirement before the annual license can be issued. After that, when the next set of renewals happen, and the annual licensing process, and Jason can speak more to this, but the annual licensing process will probably begin before the next set of renewals start. So when that happens, it'll be a requirement. For now, I think that for now it is voluntary. I don't think it is voluntary, but we will do, I'm working with the communications team here at DCR so that we can put together another communication and do more outreach and really explain to folks, that this is like sort of a one-time shot where they get the site evaluation process that is streamlined, less costly. And not only that, but my team is doing the work that the licensee should be doing, which is providing the county with evidence of permitting. We're trying to streamline this so that we can facilitate the process. But eventually it will be a requirement, and that'll be next year, like I said, when the annual licensing process begins, and then later after that for license renewal.
Right. Okay, thank you for that. Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you again for your report, and we look forward to your continuing progress next year. There's a lot to do.
Yes,
especially
there
on
is.
the compliance front.
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners, and happy holidays.
Thank you. Happy holidays to you.
Thank you.
All right. Last but not least, item number 6, report on the licensing program. Mr. Colleen,
Good afternoon, commissioners.
good afternoon. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I hope everybody's staying safe this holiday season. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to provide a brief overview of our 2022 accomplishments, and then I'm going to jump into some of our recent activities and our plan for the future. So our licensing numbers year over year, we went from 594 licensed business locations at the end of 2021, and we're up to 829 licensed business locations in 2022. We had 39 licensed phase 3 retail round 1 businesses at the end of 2021, and we've grown that to 81 licensed locations at the end of 2022. And for our social equity businesses, we've gone from 70 non-phase 2 social equity businesses up to 182 licensed social equity businesses. As the commissioners remember, our phase 1 and our phase 2 businesses were operating within the city before DCR was established. So those folks had the ability to go through an abbreviated process or to seek licensure. So, these are truly social equity applicants that came in as part of general licensing that didn't have a pre-existing business through phase 1 or phase 2. So it's a huge accomplishment. Next slide, please. Now is kind of our current set of numbers. As folks can see here, this is the number of licensed locations. We have 829 licensed locations. We have 147 applicants that have a status of local compliance underway and just have to get through either the equity share review or initial inspection in order to be eligible for temporary approval. We have another 124 applications that are still pending. They haven't been deemed filed yet. And we have just over 50 businesses that are in our pre-application review process. So in total, we have 1,152 business premises locations within our pipeline. Next slide, please. On this slide, what I did was we have a breakdown of our licenses by phase. Phase 1 has 538 licenses issued. Phase 1 businesses had the opportunity to be vertically integrated, and most of those businesses hold more than one license. Our phase 2 businesses are broken down into 2 portions. The first row is our tier 1 or tier 2, which are recognized as social equity businesses. 303 licenses have been issued to that group. And the bottom group are the tier 3 applicants who are not themselves a social equity individual applicant or social equity applicant. They've agreed to execute a social equity agreement with the city to provide support to a bona fide tier 1 or tier 2 applicant. And there's 475 licenses associated with that group. We have 84 licenses issued to phase 3 retail round 1 applicants. 81 are retail storefront, 1 for non-storefront delivery, and 2 for cultivation. It could either be the nursery or the cultivation processor. These aren't the canopy related licenses. For the public convenience or necessity process, of the 5 businesses that got the PCN finding, only 1 has received their retail storefront license. For non-storefront delivery and other social equity processes under LAMC code 104061, which is for social equity applicants, we've issued 124 licenses. The majority of those licenses, or 100 of them, were issued for the delivery only activity. For general application processing, we've issued 74 general licenses, which are non-social equity. The majority of those have been for the distribution activity. And we currently have 6 licensed testing labs within the city. Currently, DCR is administering over 1,600 licenses across all of the different locations. Next slide, please. On this slide, we're just doing a breakdown between our social equity and general licenses. To date, We've issued 512 distinct licenses to social equity businesses and 1,093 licenses to general businesses. 31.9% of our licenses are considered to be social equity licenses. Of course, in 2018, none of our businesses were social equity, so that has grown significantly. Since the conclusion of phase one, 48% of all licenses have gone to social equity businesses. And of course, since the conclusion of phase two, which was also a type of existing business, 72.3% of all licenses have been issued to social equity businesses. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to give a brief update on the phase three retail round two lottery process. On December 8th, 2022, DCR successfully conducted the retail application lottery, also known as phase three retail round two. The lottery process selected 100 verified social equity individual applicants for the opportunity to submit a pre-application record for the commercial cannabis retail storefront activity within the city of LA. Next slide, please. The lottery was the culmination of 9 months of planning, including a verification process that allowed individuals to request verification as a social equity individual applicant. Dr. Brown and her team were able to secure grant funding, which allowed DCR to waive the social equity individual applicant eligibility verification review fee for over 1,000 individuals. Within that population of folks that requested verification, over 500 social equity individual applicants met the criteria to participate and timely registered to be entered into the lottery. And DCR conducted a lottery with the assistance of FTI Consulting, and it was overseen by an independent auditor selected by the Office of the City Administrative Officer, as the director previously mentioned. A list is available on our website, and once the PDF presentation has been posted, folks will be able to click on that link to access the list of 100. Next slide, please. On Tuesday, Council adopted an ordinance which effectively had 1.5 of the recommendations that DCR had transmitted as part of a larger report. Unfortunately, we were excited because we thought our report, including all the other recommendations, was waived out of committee and would be adopted by council. Unfortunately, a motion was introduced that referred all of our recommendations that do need to be adopted back to committee, so those can't be taken up until the new year. For the draft ordinance that was adopted, applicants will be able to relocate their proposed business premises location through a refiling process associated with Municipal Code Section 10403I and 10403J. Applicants who refile an application may refile into a new community plan area from what their original application listed, as long as that community plan area has not reached undue concentration. Of course, only the retail storefront and cultivation canopy license types are subject to a finding of undue concentration. So non-storefront delivery, distribution transport only, the non-canopy cultivation licenses, testing labs, etc., can be relocated into any community plan area once that law goes into effect, and it's anticipated to go into effect sometime at the end of January. DCR would begin accepting modification requests and refiled applications under these amendments beginning on or around Wednesday, February 1st, 2023. And the last piece is, for the first time, social equity individual applicants will be able to combine their ownership interests to meet the required 51% equity share threshold, which is a big thing because now multiple social equity individual applicants can participate on a single record to meet the 51% threshold. And it also reduces the burden on an individual to have to come up with the funding necessary to buy into a business or start a business that requires at least 51% of their equity and money to be invested in that business. So that's huge. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to briefly go into the recommended ordinance amendments that are still pending within the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. These are recommendations that DCR has proposed throughout the year. We made a proposal in April of 2022 to get these through. We were asked by the Plum Committee to seek stakeholder input, meet with different council offices and brief folks with it. We did that throughout the year. Unfortunately, these recommendations still have not moved out of committee, but they're integral to our overall regulatory scheme, as well as giving the director the ability to reduce fees through a fee study that's already been drafted that is reliant on these amendments getting adopted. The director did spend a lot of her time this year looking for ways to further streamline our processes and reduce the upfront cost to applicants and licensees. And in order to effectuate the director's vision, we do have to get these amendments adopted and through City Council. And now I'm going to briefly jump into each of those recommendations. Next slide, please. The first critical one is the definition of indirect owner. As the phase 1 and phase 2 businesses know, a lot of existing individuals prefer to have their equity held through an intermediary entity, and they don't have a direct individual ownership stake within the applicant or licensee. For one of the things that happened for phase 3 retail round 1 is those social equity individual applicants had to have a direct interest within the applicant or licensee. So they weren't able to put an LLC or a corporation between them and the overall applicant and licensee, which makes it a little bit more difficult to raise capital and funding, as well as sell their equity interest within a company unless they're going to sell their entire interest. So the creation of this definition is going to help facilitate the aggregation of the social equity interest, which is one of the amendments that did get through committee, as well as streamline DCR's review of ownership disclosure forms and obtaining information and signatures from applicants and licensees. Next slide, please. The other update would be the definition of owner. This is just meant to identify a direct person with at least a 20% aggregate ownership stake or equity interest in the applicant or licensee, unless the interest is solely a security lien, profit sharing, encumbrance, or held through another person, which would be another entity. Next slide, please. DCR has recommended a sunset date for the original SEIA verification criteria. The criteria that was utilized in 2019 is no longer accepted for new applications and is grandfathered in for all existing applications before the department. The new expanded equity social equity program does require people just to have met at least 2 out of the 3 criteria, as well as meeting certain asset attestation requirements to be identified as low income. The goal here would be to have one set of social equity criteria standards that have to be met for new licenses and ownership modifications on a go-forward basis. It reduces the administrative burden on the department. Next slide, please. One of the other components is codifying entity substitutions. Currently, entity substitutions only exist within the context of DCR's rules and regulations. And we would like to have that rolled up into Los Angeles Municipal Code Section 10403E. Entity subs are, of course, limited to pre-apps originally filed as sole proprietorships for licensees or social equity applicants eligible to participate in the refiling process. Next slide. DCR is suggesting language around entity substitutions to allow for the transference of a license from one entity to a new entity. The current municipal code precludes a license from transitioning from one entity to a new entity. We think this is important because once we actually start issuing annual licenses, to avoid having to go through a brand new application process and environmental review just to change the entity issue to the license, we need a mechanism to facilitate that. So this is important. Also, we don't want to have to require a new land use review, especially when the business premises associated with the license is not changing. The analysis should be exactly the same. It's just the name of the entity printed on the license that is changing. We want to require that the new entity have already completed the legal business entity record before the modification request can be considered. This is important for of course, are social equity licenses where the new entity does have to go through that equity share review. To the extent that the equity share review has already been completed, it allows for us to quickly update and complete the entity's substitution modification request through the system, so it's not held up. And then, of course, this is all done with the intention of reducing processing times to complete those entity substitutions. Next slide. We're recommending an amendment to require SEIAs to identify a successor in interest who is a natural person. One of the things to maintain the spirit of the social equity program is to ensure that a deceased SEIA's interest remains in the control of their individual successors, such as family members, rather than a corporate entity, bank, or other entity which the successor may not have control over. Next slide. The abandonment process was introduced earlier this year. We're suggesting to add provisions that would establish that an application which is not associated with an active compliant business premises address be subject to abandonment. Currently, when somebody notifies the department that they no longer have site control, basically we have to wait the 30 days, give them the opportunity to cure, and submit additional documentation before we can abandon the application record. It would be more beneficial to applicants to allow the department, upon the receipt of the business premises surrender form, to be able to abandon the application so that applicant can get back into the regulatory process as quickly as possible. Generally, applicants could lose site control when their lease is terminated, the relevant business premises transfers hands. If the applicant can't relocate immediately, abandonment does give them a pathway for refiling and the opportunity to restart within that licensing process. So that's important. Next slide, please. In terms of initial inspections and modifications, we want to make sure that folks are requesting that initial inspection within 6 months from the date their application is deemed filed, or the temporary approval application record could be subject to abandonment. What's happening right now is there's a lot of folks that are paying application fees that create buffers, and businesses aren't moving forward, which precludes other applicants from moving forward in the process and DCR from being able to process different modification requests. The existing language prohibits social equity individual applicants from modifying applications to remove or replace a social equity owner until a license is issued. DCR recommends that provision should be amended to prevent the removal or replacement of any owner until a license is issued. So we want general applicants and social equity applicants to have to adhere to the same rules. Next slide, please. In terms of relocations, DCR did submit an amendment request for licensees to be able to relocate to a new business premises after receiving temporary approval or a license into community plan areas that have not reached undue concentration, as well as ensuring that once DCR has approved a business premises modification request for them to relocate, that the temporary approval or license expire effectively 180 calendar days after we've approved that request. Retail storefront businesses create buffers one of two ways, either when the temporary approval application fee is paid or when they pay their business premises relocation fee. So there's instances where one entity is basically creating two buffers under their opportunity, which further reduces the amount of compliant locations that other applicants can compete for. Hopefully, in the future, City Council will request that the Department of City Planning amend LAMC 105 to give some flexibility there so that licenses could be co-located within 700 feet of one another. And of course, we do want to ensure that licensees are not conducting commercial cannabis activities concurrently at more than one location. And we want to facilitate the maintenance of the DCR licensing platform and keep all of that up-to-date information on our licensing map. Next slide, please. Phase 3 retail round 1 applicants that were kicked out due to sensitive uses that existed in 2019 did not get the benefit of amendments that were made in 2020, which would allow for a phase 3 retail round 1 application that was deemed ineligible due to a proximity to a sensitive use to identify a compliant property within that same community plan area. So we are requesting that the 12 folks that still have not been able to participate in phase 3 retail round 1 be granted that opportunity. If this amendment is adopted, these businesses would not be counted towards the undue concentration for those community plan areas. So it doesn't have a direct impact on phase 3 retail round 2 or the capacity available for any future lottery. Next slide, please. We're recommending a few big changes to undue concentration. Undue concentration relies on the number of licenses issued in a community plan area to determine whether or not that CPA has reached undue concentration. What that means is DCR has the ability to accept more applications than it can issue licenses for. If DCR were to accept more applications than it could issue licenses for, once we do reach undue concentration, we would stop working on any of the pending applications and they would be routed to the public convenience or necessity process, which is a discretionary process before the city council. The city council has 90 days to consider a PCN request. And if the finding is not made within 90 days, the request is deemed denied by operation of law. So we could at some point in the future have instances where applicants that have been in the process for years working towards licensure are subject to the PCN process, and ultimately the PCN finding is not made and they're going to be completely out of our process. So we've recommended to grandfather in everybody that has a pending application to make sure that they're not going to be subject to that PCN process at some future date, and that we change the threshold from number of licenses issued to the number of applications accepted, such that DCR doesn't accept more applications than it has the ability to issue licenses for. We think these are very important recommendations that should be no-brainers for the city. Next slide, please. And then, as I previously mentioned, moving the threshold to applications from licenses will protect the interest of applicants who have made significant progress in our licensing program. Next slide. There's several topographical changes that we would like to make, one of which affects Ms. Wiles's operation for compliance. We've got egregious violations being called major. We categorize them differently as serious. We want to make sure that's consistent. For household sides, emancipated minors are, able to be claimed on their legal guardian or parents' income tax return, could be counted towards their household size. And then, of course, the definition of licensee needs to have a corresponding update to 10404 to specify that a final inspection and community meeting must occur before the issuance of an annual license. Next slide, please. Additional changes would be amending 10403 to reflect the new record types as well as the modification processes for each record type. One of the new record types, of course, is a legal business entity record. Any ownership and primary personnel changes will need to be made to that record, so the code should be updated to reflect that. Under 10411M, we want to change it from semi-annual reporting concerning workforce requirements from January to July. Currently, it says on or before the last day of February. Folks still have the opportunity to renew their licenses through the end of February. So it would be cleaner to have folks be able to have that coincide with the existing renewal process and requirements, which would simplify reporting. So next slide. Since the state is sunsetting their provisional licensure process, DCR is also recommending that the city establish a sunset date for the issuance of temporary approval to coincide with the end of the state's provisional licensing process. We would like for that final date to be set about 6 months after the state's deadline, such that if somebody was already in the state's pipeline and working towards a provisional license, they could continue to work towards their corresponding local temporary approval. If we don't have deadlines, some of the licensees are going to lose their ability to conduct commercial cannabis activity when their state provisional licenses expire. What we want to do is we want to have the annual application process be formally adopted by the city council, as well as all of those mandatory requirements, so we can start to transition temporary approval licensees into annual licensees. Next slide, please. As part of that, any of the applicants that receive a status of local compliance underway during the current year would be eligible to receive either temporary approval or an annual license, depending on what DCR has the authority to issue at that time. We are also recommending an amendment to LAMC sections 10407C and 10408B to clarify that phase 1 and phase 2 applicants are also required to go through the temporary approval application process by submitting all required information, forms, and documents until the proposed temporary approval sunset date. And then, of course, this amendment ensures that temporary approval requirements are the same across all phases. Next slide, please. We would like to expand the refiling process. We suggested an amendment to allow licensees with an abandoned temporary approval or annual license application to refile. Currently, there's not a mechanism for annual license applications to be refiled, which seems unfair given the fact that that's the only application type DCR will be accepting at some point in the future. Also, the proposed amendment would expand the refiling process to allow applicants participating in the annual licensing process that don't receive their annual license due to unpaid fees, incomplete forms, or for other reasons to refile their annual application after the initial applicant is abandoned. Next slide, please. The refiling process should also be expanded to include expired licenses. The code contemplates a process for expired licenses to be revived under LAMC section 10412A, which states that in the event the license is not renewed prior to the expiration date, the licensee shall cease all commercial cannabis activity until such time the licensee is issued a new license from DCR and a license from the state. Unfortunately, there's not a refiling process currently for an expired license, and some of the folks that lose site control may have to allow their license to expire because they're unable to find a new location prior to the expiration of their license. So this would, of course, give them the opportunity to come back in once they've identified a new compliant location. Next slide, please. We want to make a few clarifications on the refiling process. We want to clarify that after January 1st, 2023, a temporary approval application must have been deemed filed, i.e. all documents and fees were submitted for the application to be eligible for the refiling process. For phase 2 and phase 3 records, some of those folks were pending abandonment due to unpaid fees, and we wanted to give them the opportunity to refile and pay the fees. So now that folks have had almost a year to deal with abandoned records without having paid those fees, we do want to close that loophole. So an application does have to be deemed filed before it can be refiled. This ensures that only applications that were actually filed and fees were paid and we began to review are actually before us for refiling. This actually ensures that folks that never paid the initial fees, they don't have the opportunity to use refiling, and those opportunities could go to other applicants. Next slide, please. And the last piece for the clarification of the refiling process is that we proposed an amendment such that any application that's deemed abandoned 3 or more months after the end of the state's provisional licensing process have to be refiled as an annual application rather than a temporary approval application, because the applicant would not be able to get a state provisional license at that time. Next slide, please. We are proposing formal annual licensing requirements. This is one of the biggest hurdles to being able to finalize CEQA documentation for everybody. So what we do need to have is a formal annual licensing requirement. This is something that Ms. Wiles needs for her section as well, given the fact that people do need public health permits. Those are mandated requirements in order for the application to be deemed complete, which allows DCR to then make a formal recommendation on the issuance of an annual license. Without this, we're not going to be able to move anybody forward. And a lot of people have been calling the department asking when they could expect to have their CEQA documentation and everything finalized. And the answer is until we get this adopted by City Council, we can't deem any of those applications complete, which means we can't make the annual licensing recommendations, which means that their environmental review documents can't be complete and start the appeal process, which is required to be exhausted by the state before the state deems it complete. So our ability to issue annual licenses is directly tied to these recommendations, and unless or until it gets adopted, we're not going to be able to move people forward in the annual licensing process. In terms of the annual licensing requirements, we want to make sure that the environmental review is complete. They have all of the necessary permits to lawfully operate within the city, which Ms. Wiles talked about during her presentation. And we also want to establish the same annual license process that allows DCR to suspend or revoke an annual licenses for the same reasons that we may suspend or revoke temporary approval. Next slide, please. We're recommending that the municipal code be updated to clarify that annual licensing approval process for non-retail activities that are in business premises less than 3,000 square feet or non-storefront retailer activities have to have written findings based on the evidence in the record to be denied. Currently, the code doesn't require anything from DCR to deny those, and for due process purposes, it would make sense for DCR to issue written findings. It would basically mirror the exact same language that would be utilized for the retail annual licensing process. Next slide, please. For the renewal process, we want to amend sections 10403 and 10406 to clarify that all records must be updated or renewed annually, requiring all applicants to stay current on document form and information requirements ensures that all records are maintained to the same consistent standard and that the records are compatible with plan system enhancements. Next slide, please. So records with local authorization are required to be renewed annually. We would like to move that section from 10408 down into 10412, which is where we have the license renewal requirements. So that stuff isn't floating in different places within the ordinance. We also want to update the term local authorization to local compliance underway to reflect the terminology utilized by the state. And of course, we want to require phase 2 records to continue to have to renew their local compliance underway annually until such time a license is issued. Next slide, please. We want to make a couple of changes to fee deferrals. Currently, the code allows the director to defer fees for up to 6 months or until the time a license is issued. Currently, most of the applicants, especially those under phase 2, have exceeded the 6-month limit. Therefore, all of the previously deferred fees become due at the time temporary approval is issued. So applicants get hit with a large invoice reflecting all of the fees that had been deferred to date at the time of licensure, and it surprises them often. The director has been pushing for an amendment that would allow for her to then go ahead and further defer those fees up to 1 year after a license is issued to give them the opportunity to generate revenue to pay all of those back deferred fees. Next slide, please. There's a number of proposed amendments tied to enforcement and compliance. Ms. Wiles went through most of those. This section of the code hasn't been updated since 2018, so we need to just overhaul it. And Ms. Wiles has been playing a critical role in standing up the compliance and enforcement division. So we would like for this code to be updated to reflect what her unit's going to be doing on a go-forward basis. Next slide, please. Our denial reasons are spread throughout the code. It makes sense to have an independent section compiling all of the reasons DCR may deny licensure in one place to make it easier for stakeholders to identify those reasons. We would also like to consolidate all of those reasons into a newly created section under 10406G and clarify that an application or license may be denied for the same reasons, either at the time of temporary approval or during the annual licensing process. Next slide, please. As I previously mentioned, there's a mandatory requirement section in the code. It has not been amended since 2017. And in order for us to start moving applications forward and deeming them complete for the annual license process, we do need to overhaul that section to make it consistent with all of the other changes that City Council has enacted since 2017. This ties into the annual application process, the need for health permits, the need to, demonstrate that they have all of the certificates of occupancy and other things necessary for them to be issued permits by the city. And, some of the stuff that's in there now is outdated. It references state requirements that are either duplicative with the rules and regulations or are no longer part of the state's regulatory structure. So this just has to be cleaned up in order for us to move annual licensing forward. And we think it makes sense to do it in parallel with making the annual licensing recommendations. Next slide, please. For our appeals process, again, this is something that hasn't been updated since 2018, and it contains language inconsistent with other sections. What we would like to do is restructure 104.10 to create a separate subsection to set forth clear rules concerning each type of appeal, the relevant timing considerations for that appeal, and who the appeal hearing body would be. Next slide, please. And then lastly is there's a deletion of or changes to certain definitions. There's certain definitions that are only listed in the actual definition section of the code. They're not used anywhere else, and they're not utilized in the rules and regulations. So it doesn't make sense to have a definition for something that's not utilized. A lot of these are legacy things that were at one point utilized at the state level, and we had the definition at the local level for it, but they've been purged from the state's requirements since then. We also want to make amendments to application license and state license to clarify that those definitions apply to all licensees, whether they have temporary approval, a state provisional license, or any annual license from the city or the state. And next slide, please. We brought back in the recommendation for foreign ownership. Currently, DCR and the city have rules that are inconsistent with the state. The city's rules do not allow for corporations that are incorporated outside of the United States to apply for a commercial cannabis license or be an owner of a commercial cannabis license. We are inconsistent with state law on this issue, and the state has a provision that requires any foreign entity to register with the California Secretary of State and meet all of the normal requirements a business that incorporates within California has to meet. And they'll actually issue a certificate of qualification, certificate of registration, or certificate of status to that foreign entity, which then allows for them to apply for or be an owner of a commercial cannabis business. We would like our language just to be updated to be consistent with it. This, of course, also gives social equity individual applicants an opportunity to create an entity that would be an owner of the applicant or licensee. For instance, in Canada, where commercial cannabis businesses can be publicly traded such that they can actually raise capital to fund their US-based business that is applying for a commercial cannabis license. So it's a funding mechanism for social equity individual applicants to raise capital in a more traditional sense than can be done in the US, because it's federally prohibited to operate a commercial cannabis business or trade or publicly trade a commercial cannabis business. Next slide, please. We've reached the end of agenda item number 6. I do want to throw a huge shout out to Director Garakian. It's been an amazing year under her. She's pushed forward a lot of these changes that are streamlining the process. A lot of these recommendations she's personally sat in meetings with council offices and stakeholders to help facilitate the conversation and collect information. And really her leadership has gotten us to where we are at the end of the year. And of course, my licensing team, you guys are amazing. we would not be where we are without you. You are the department, heart and soul, and we know how much you care about all of our stakeholders, and you keep pushing our programs forward. President On, turn it back over to you.
Wow, thank you so much, Mr. Colleen. That is a lot of information, very technical. And you have a very, very difficult task. I mean, you've essentially architected this this program from a licensing perspective, and all of the tweaks and changes that are necessitated along the way. My hat's off to you and your team. It is really mind-boggling. Just the amount of information we had in this presentation. I don't know about my other commissioners, but that was a lot to digest. So I'm going to open it up at this time for any questions or comments regarding Mr. Colleen's presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner President On, excuse me. And thank you, AGM Colleen. As President On mentioned, just a lot of information to digest, but very informative and very helpful. I think that the policy recommendations piece, being that this is something that's kind of forward looking, and I know we'll be eager to track. It'd be helpful in the follow up and readout to have that breakdown of the key policy recommendations. I'm interested in the foreign ownership piece, the last piece that you covered. It sounds like there's at least some legal precedent provided by the state, but I'm curious how the city handles other non-cannabis business entities, if there's any analog that can be found in how they handle this element of businesses licensed within the city, or is it just not as relevant because they're not as heavily regulated at the city level?
The city doesn't have similar laws for other business industries, and when the commercial cannabis infrastructure was adopted back in 2017, a foreign entity like a Canadian corporation couldn't be the direct applicant or licensee, but they could be an owner of the applicant or licensee. So the phase 1 and the phase 2 businesses had the opportunity to have Canadian entities as owners on their records and got grandfathered in. But the law changed because of the definition of owner and some of the other changes. And then basically it precludes now social equity applicants from getting the same benefit that the early adopters got. And it puts them in a worse position in terms of raising capital.
Yeah, no, completely understand. I think the one thing that I would say is, if this were to go through, one thought or recommendation, and this is probably for Dr. Brown, is providing technical assistance or possibly even just trainings and insight on how businesses can take advantage of legal foreign ownership and foreign investment, and understanding the benefits for social equity companies. So that's assuming this were to this policy recommendation were to move forward. It's a thought for additional kind of technical assistance, another area for where we could be adding value to social equity licensees, perhaps.
Do we have any other follow-ups? Okay.
I just have a question, just a question. AGM Colleen, do we know where in terms of the time frame City Council is on placing these recommendations on the agenda for review?
Unfortunately, we don't. We were before Plum Committee in November. They only moved 1.5 of the recommendations out of committee, and they asked for us to report back on the report back we did, which we had transmitted. It was transmitted before the office of the city attorney transmitted the draft ordinance to do the 1.5 amendments, and we were hopeful that when the waiver came through to full council, that the rest of the recommendations were going to be adopted so that the city attorney's office could work on that draft ordinance over the council recess so that a draft ordinance could be prepared and presented back to city council in early January. But now it looks like the earliest the rest of our recommendations could be scheduled and plumb would be sometime in January. And then, of course, it would have to go through the council approval process. And then it will take the city attorney a little bit of time to prepare and present the ordinance. And then, of course, it has to go back through the legislative process, and then it has to be adopted, and then it has to sit there for published for 31 days before it become law. So I'm a little concerned that we're going to be behind the 8 ball in 2023, and our ability to deem some of these applications complete to get them into that annual licensing process and for them to get their annual licenses before the end of 2024 so that they can continue operating in January of 2025.
Understood. Thank you so much for that clarification. And for your service and for your dedication to the program. Congratulations on a great year.
Yes, sir. And I want to echo Vice President Mason, Mr. Colleen, it's such a gargantuan task. So many technical aspects, so many different license types. And just, with each of these presentations, I start to understand more what you and what the department is up against from a licensing and ordinance perspective. And so really just want to reiterate our thanks to you and your staff for your work and your role thus far in this process. So thank you again. At this time, I do want to reopen item 5 briefly. There was something that my memory was triggered. There was some talk about the progressive enforcement, and I wanted to follow up with Ms. Wiles about that briefly.
Thank you. Yes, of course, President Ahn. Progressive enforcement is at the core of our program. And Mr. Colleen touched on this. We provided much needed LAMC amendments to the Plum Committee, as he mentioned, and to City Council for their consideration and approval, which adds tools that we can use to gain compliance that begin with a notice to correct. So that's part of the amendments that we provided. A notice to correct that carries no penalties, and it's a friendly notice to comply. And then it goes to a notice of violation that, while it still allows the operator to continue to operate, carry heavy penalties, to a notice of suspension, which requires that operators cease all operations altogether, to finally revocation, which is the point of no return. All these tools are included in the proposed amendments that we were hoping got adopted before the end of the year, so that we could start implementing them. But unfortunately, they were not. So we have to just kind of put those things on hold until that goes through council. If I may, President Ahn and commissioners, I was remiss and not taking this opportunity to give a huge thank you, just like Jason said, to our interim director, Michelle Karakian. The magnitude of what she has been able to accomplish in this short time as our department leader is, it cannot be overstated. I don't want to get emotional because it's huge. For me personally and professionally, she has been a mentor, cheerleader, and an energetic force of nature. What you see in these meetings is exactly who she is all of the time. I am humbled by her dedication, and it's a privilege to work for her and alongside her and along my colleagues, Dr. Brown, Jason, our legal team, and of course, alongside this commission. You are so thoughtful, and I know that you really care about the work that we do. And before I really get too emotional, I just want to say it's an honor to be a part of this team. And again, happy holidays. And I'm going to take my camera off because I am getting emotional, but thank you. Thank you very much. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, and then some. Very beautifully put. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Ms. Wiles. Really appreciate all that you do as well. Anything else from the commissioners? Yeah, I just want to also kind of reiterate that point. You know, Ms. Grockin, we spoke early on as you were tapped to be the interim manager. And so we talked a lot about your vision and the things that you wanted to implement. And I got to say, you've just done a phenomenal job coming into very challenging circumstances. And we were in transition, and you really left your mark. You made it your own. And I'm really excited to see, you know, how this now comes to fruition. All the seeds that you've planted over the past year. And I think it culminated, you know, recently with the success of the lottery. And I think with all the change in the transition, there was a lot of trepidation and uncertainty. And you really came in and really stabilized, and really not just stabilized, but really flourished in that role. And so I really just want to thank you for stepping in the way you did. And, you know, as you know, confirmed by Ms. Wiles and I think your staff, how they've responded to your leadership. And, you know, I really appreciate your contributions this past year as well. All right, with that, unless there's any other hands, going once, going twice.
Thanks, Commissioner, and thanks, Commissioners, Commissioner President. Thank you, Commissioners. It's an absolute honor, and I don't want to get emotional either, but we're a very small team, and every single person who works on this team cares immensely. These are all mission-driven individuals, from our executive team to our legal team to our employees to our admin clerks to our TLH hires. It's like everybody puts in 120,000 bazillion %. I mean, and they go above and beyond. And it's been the privilege and honor of my career to work with this department. And I thank you guys all for your leadership. Yeah, I probably should turn off my camera right now too, but I hope that everybody has a wonderful holiday season, and I hope you guys get some rest. I hope our staff gets a little bit of rest, but not too much rest, because there's still work to do to prepare for next year and also to close out the end of this year. Our constituents are counting on us to continue doing our jobs up until the minute that the clock strikes 12 on December 31st. So we're going to keep on trucking through this year and into next year, and can't wait to continue working with everybody to bring more ideas to make this department more equitable, more business friendly, more efficient, and more transparent as we move into the new year. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Now I want to thank my fellow commissioners. It's been a long year. Really have enjoyed serving with you this past year. Looking forward to the next year. Just want to wish you and your families a happy holidays. Stay safe, and we'll see you in January. Thank you so much. And with that, we'll adjourn the meeting. The time now is 4:36 p.m.